The most famous comic book characters were all created decades ago and have years upon years of history. Spider-Man is about to turn 60 years old, the X-Men were created 59 years ago, and Batman himself is 83 years old. So it's really unusual when a relatively new character from the comic books makes an impact beyond the world of comics. In recent years, whenever a newly introduced character in either Marvel or DC gets popular, it's usually a legacy character that's taken up the mantle of a previously established hero. A couple good examples would be Spider-Man Miles Morales and Ms. Marvel Kamala Khan, with them getting their own movie and TV show respectively. And beyond the big two companies, we also have to give credit to characters that originate from indie comics, such as Spawn or Invincible, who are also pretty popular and successful characters. So it's not like the newer comic characters aren't becoming popular, it's just that most times, even if they get recognizable, they aren't able to become as popular as the characters that preceded them. But there is one character that has managed to become even more popular than other comic book characters that have many more decades of history. And that character is, of course, Harley Quinn. She is, in my honest opinion, the most popular comic book character created in the last 30 years. And that is supported by the fact that ever since she was first introduced, she's had a constant presence in the DC universe, with multiple comic book runs of her own, countless appearances in Batman-related books and events, headlining the relaunch of the Suicide Squad title, which managed to get so popular that it served as the basis for a live-action movie franchise. A franchise that, as you would expect, really focused on Harley Quinn. Margot Robbie's performance as the character was really well received, and she managed to do a fantastic job with properly portraying Harley Quinn's energetic and fun personality. She did such a good job, in fact, that, allegedly, Harley Quinn was the most popular Halloween costume in 2016, and hell, overall I believe it's safe to say that she's one of the most cosplayed characters ever. The internet is absolutely, positively filled with Harley Quinn cosplays. Now, the only other comic book character created in these past 30 years or so that might be considered just as popular as Harley Quinn would be Deadpool, yet another comedic sort of anti-hero that has managed to get adapted into a highly successful movie franchise, completely out of Ryan Reynolds' willpower and passion. But while Deadpool is undoubtedly very popular, I still believe Harley Quinn is a more famous character. And it might be because Deadpool's growth in popularity at times felt really forced, and it seemed as a deliberate push from Marvel to do everything they can on their part in order for Deadpool to achieve meme status and internet fame, with Marvel giving him various solo and team-up books over the years before him appearing in other forms of media. That's not to say that DC doesn't deliberately try to push Harley Quinn, but her popularity growth always seemed more organic, because when she was first introduced in the classic Batman the Animated Series, she wasn't really given any special kind of treatment. Despite her being a new character created just for the show, she was treated as just any other villain in Batman's Rogues Gallery. It wasn't DC making a calculated market research attempt at creating the next big character. She was just a cool idea that Paul Dini had, with a really compelling backstory and a fantastic and iconic visual look. And all of these details made her character have such a great impact with audiences that simply made her unforgettable. Even despite her being a character that was created specifically for the show, her concept alone is so well fitting to the Batman mythos that it honestly feels like she should have been there from the start. It's like she was just waiting to be created and introduced into the world of Batman. Also, as a side note here, even though she first appeared in a cartoon, given that she was created for a comic book world, she is definitely considered a comic book character, in my opinion at least. After the animated series had ended, Harley Quinn was introduced into the main DC Comics continuity, and she would continue to make sparse appearances over the next decade while she remained as a fan favorite of those who loved her in the DC animated universe. And eventually, she also appeared in the very popular 2009 video game Batman Arkham Asylum, where she was given an outfit that looked very different than her classic jester outfit with which she was first introduced. And later on, beginning with DC's New 52 relaunch in 2011, she would start to have a look that was much closer in line with this video game depiction rather than her classic look. It was at this time that she was also introduced into the Suicide Squad, and later on she would get her very own solo ongoing comic book title, as well as multiple limited series and an overall larger presence within the DC universe. And it would be in this era when DC's overexposure of Harley Quinn really began, with her appearing in multiple video games, a multitude of animated movies, with some of them even having Harley as a protagonist, like Assault on Arkham, Batman and Harley, and Suicide Squad Hell to Pay. She also had 3 live-action movies as mentioned previously, and she also even got her own animated show, which is, in my opinion, one of the best shows based on a comic book character to come out in recent years. Still though, DC's handling of the character is not perfect. There are a lot of things that DC have done with Harley that I believe hinders her character and affects her negatively. Like for example, turning her progressively more and more into a hero only when it suits whatever story she's in. Nowadays, it sometimes feels like DC treats her like an honorary member of the Bat family, which is something that really diminishes Harley's character and everything she's done and been through, in my opinion. It's like they conveniently ignore the fact that Harley was the right-hand woman of the Joker, one of DC's biggest terrorists, supervillains, and serial killers. Harley is directly and indirectly responsible for the deaths of literally hundreds of people within the world that she lives in, and DC expects us as readers to believe that everyone just forgets about that? It's something entirely contrived that DC likes to do simply because Harley teaming up with Batman and the Justice League is something that sells, and they know that it sells. And admittedly, that's a real testament to just how popular Harley has become. But in my opinion, DC should always try to be true to Harley's character. She should always be a chaotic villain who sometimes might do some good, but overall she just do whatever she wants to do. Above all else, her stories should always allow her to be unpredictable. Being able to do something goofy and silly one minute and then go batshit crazy and do something really violent and intense. She should always be a wild card. So yeah, DC should definitely try to acknowledge and work on the issues in how they handle Harley Quinn, from the unnecessary overexposure that could lead to character fatigue and people becoming tired of her, to the over-reliance in Harley's visual appeal, which kinda tends to objectify and fetishize the character. Those are all issues that could be worked on, but even considering all that, it doesn't change the fact that Harley Quinn has become insanely famous. So famous that I felt the need to make this video just sort of as an acknowledgement and collective realization that if we look at all the comic book characters created in the last 30 years, Harley Quinn is arguably the most popular comic book character created in recent memory. So I hope I was able to show my respect and appreciation to every creative mind that put in the work to make it happen. We have to thank and appreciate Paul Dini for having such a cool concept. We have to appreciate Arlene Sorkin for inspiring Paul Dini to create Harley Quinn. And we have to appreciate all the amazing and talented actresses that have portrayed the character over the years and made her so popular as she is today.